on December 11th, 5:30 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Roll call, Director Craig Carter,
Here.
Director Jack Jacobs,
Here.
Director Robert Skinner,
Here.
Vice Chair David Haslam,
Here.
Chairman Eric Lawson.
Here.
The next item on the agenda is the invocation and then Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to serve your people, Father. Please let us gather in peace. Let us make decisions that benefit your people, and please lead us and guide us throughout the evening in your heavenly name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion we adopt the agenda as stated.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Public comment on the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, Jim Cornish, your minutes are on the consent agenda. There's also an item about recoupment of certain monies out of the general funds transfer. And also, there is the motion that was made to recoup all costs related to the city's refusal to abide by the legislature's mandate to give you the keys to the kingdom. I see that we're going to get the Ackerman feedback for the frivolous lawsuit that was filed. I commend you for that. It's $250. All the work Walker has done is only $135, and that's probably 10 times what that other firm did. You were going to hand his contract to Gray Robinson. They don't want it. They don't want it. The Ackerman partner charged $7.95 an hour. I would suggest that you put on the agenda a very serious look at the costs of this, because I think it goes way beyond what you've listed. We're looking at a bond validation proceedings due to all the chaos that was and confusion. You paid Mr. Nee's office $545,000 to try to thwart and then to dissolve the authority. You've had Holland and Knight and your consultants trying to calm the bond markets while the city commission behaves in a way which is frightening. Mr. Walker referred to their behavior as subversive, and he chooses his words very carefully. I don't think you got in anywhere near getting a handle on what it's already cost you and what it will cost you in the event that their antics lead to a dead donkey, because you don't know what they're going to do yet, or their cronies filing the private nuisance suits. So I think you're just shooting from the hip. If we're going to get all costs, let's do a very careful analysis of what those costs are and let them know that any future costs, including debt downgrades, they'll have to eat it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Nguyen, Finance Director for the City of Gainesville's General Government. I understand there is a consent agenda item regarding the general fund transfer. In relation to this item, I would formally like to state that general government does not strongly disagrees with general government's GRU's unilateral decision to impose these deductions, including the county streetlights and legal fees related to defending the GRU Authority Board. The city should not bear responsibility for GRU's financial obligations. Such actions undermine the intent and structure of the general services contribution, creating an inequitable burden on general government without proper justification or mutual agreement. General government intends to engage with the county to explore a better path forward regarding these streetlight costs and seeks additional discussion with GRU concerning legal fees charged to general government. I respectfully request this item be pulled from GRU, pulled and that GRU be directed to remit the full budgeted fiscal year 2024 general services contribution. We recommend awaiting current litigation before establishing a precedent where GRU can compel general government to accept expenditures by manipulating the GSC. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chuck Ross. I concur. The item regarding the general fund transfer ought to be pulled. In particular, the lights that you're trying to get the city to pay for the county right-of-ways are right-of-ways that GRU uses, I understand. So it should be a GRU expense, not a general government expense. I'd like you to pull the item on the Energy Authority for the purpose of maybe educating the public as to what that organization is. You're an investor in it. You own 6% of it, and why the pros and cons of why you would have to guarantee certain payments if unforeseen events happen. But and let's see if there's anything else I'd like you to pull. But I think it's important that you explain what the Energy Authority is about so the general public understands why you own a piece of it and what it does. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's David Young. I live just outside of Gainesville city limits. I've been to a few of these meetings now, and every time I've heard solar energy discussed, it seems to be kind of in a politely dismissive tone. I just wanted to share some of the insights that I have as a solar energy homeowner. I have a 10 kilowatt rooftop array and a 20 kilowatt battery storage.
Motion on the agenda being approved. This has nothing to do with it.
Oh,
We're just talking about, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sir, if you have any comments on the agenda, there's
No.
another time for you to speak and just general public comment.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, just because it would be out of order, so I apologize for bringing it up.
Thank you.
My name's Donald Shepherd, and as a people's representative, I wanted to take and speak about what is going on with the GRU billing. and
Sir, do you have any comments on the agenda?
The
agenda?
agenda. I have, these are on the agenda. Sir? Okay. I dismiss myself, sir.
There's another time for you to come up and speak.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This was my citizen comment.
No, not a citizen comment yet. Yeah. Okay, back to the board for discussion on the agenda. Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next agenda item is the chair comments.
The only thing I wanted to say was when Ed and I are developing the agenda for these meetings, we talk about what should go on the consent agenda. And so the things that, in my opinion, that go on the consent agenda are generally routine business items or items that all the directors or board members have had a chance to review and study. But I want to let you know, if there's ever a time where you feel like there should be board discussion of these items, when we go through the agenda, please feel free to just say, I'd like to pull this out and put it on a regular agenda. So just so you know, that's the approach that Ed and I have taken with this agenda. But feel free, there's absolutely, we can always pull it out and put it on the main agenda for discussion. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Chair Lawson. The next item on the agenda is general public comment.
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish, you are on a path to take 1/3 of your revenues and pay the massive interest on your massive backloaded debt, to make the minimum principal payment, and to do some debt defeasance. And if you do that for 10 years, you hope to reduce your $2 billion debt by 20%. Meanwhile, 51.3% of your generation capacity is scheduled for retirement during that time frame. You have one transmission line in here. You have no firm availability whatsoever. GRU on at least 3 occasions tried to get firm availability, but they can't afford the payments. So Mr. Berlarski is in the position of having to run these plants beyond their useful life because he can't buy the power because there's no transmission line to deliver it. So we're basically heading for a situation where if things go wrong, you will not be able to meet your obligations, sir. And there'll be consequences. You have no legislative agenda. You don't even show up once every 4 weeks. You have no auditor. Mr. Berlarski can cut Holland Knight another $300,000, which is way more than Walker's made total, to find a grant. Doesn't even come before the authority. He has no authority to do that. Your state of the utility has nothing about disconnects due to non-payment. It has nothing about the fuel levelization balance. It has nothing about how much money Holland Knight sucks out of the utility every month, but it's probably massive. So it's pretty much a sham, and the public can't comment on it. So you may have Mr. Berlarski as your public relations officer. Mr. Skinner used to be one. But the results of the referendum indicate that your messaging is lousy, that you haven't won the hearts and minds of the customers because, after all, you haven't done anything for them except not increase it again. You can't even get the garbage and the stormwater off the bill. So it's a do-nothing authority in terms of the owners of the utility, and the referendum reflects that. Why does Mr. Berlarski have time to quibble with Eastman on Facebook? Why isn't he ascertaining SLA losses in the millions that are not reflected on the books? And finally, you said you're going to honor the agreement for IT. There's no agreement. There was falsified full cost allocation reports. Falsified. 3 million, 4.5 million a year before, and it's been going on for years. That's not an agreement. That's a fraud and ratepayer. If this man falsified his timesheets for a couple $100, there'd be consequences. Cunningham loss cost us millions. Didn't have to answer for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chuck Ross, I want to talk about, at the October meeting, the general manager presented what he, update on the IRP, the Integrated Resources Plan. And essentially what he said was he was going to run the equipment basically into the ground, past their life expectancy. He didn't plan for how he was going to replace it. He called it a plan of optionality, which that's interesting. Plan of optionality is a plan with really limiting your options, because before you go forward and dismiss the prior IRP, I think you need to get an understanding of what it would cost to try to run the equipment past its life expectancy. As the Chair Lawson asked the general manager, had he done that research, and the answer was no, and he was going to bring it back. What were the risks and costs associated with running the equipment past its life expectancy? He had no answer, which means he came to the meeting unprepared, because that's a pretty clear-cut question. How are you going to do this? And how did you determine what their life expectancy is if you're not an expert in that area? So the first thing I would suggest is that the general manager hire a consultant engineer to determine what, if any, life expectancy there is past I guess what he called the safety margin, if I remember correctly, something to that effect. Anyway, it was a poor presentation, and there was a lot of fluff and no substance, frankly. The last thing I would say is, on the website, you're still putting out information about the ballot, which is false, which I've mentioned before. Draws that were in excess of 68 million from the years 18 to 21 is not accurate. Setting that aside, that referendum's over. It was a landslide victory in favor of eliminating this board. And there's going to be a hearing coming up, I understand, shortly. But meanwhile, take the information down from the website. It's old, it's wrong, and you lost. Thank you.
David Young. Apologies for going out of order previously. Anyway, I wanted to share some insights about being a national solar homeowner. I have a 10 kilowatt rooftop array, 20 kilowatt battery storage, and GRU is not my battery. My battery's in a garage, and it runs the house pretty much all night. I can charge the battery during the day with the solar array, and pretty much run all my appliances at the same time. So it works out pretty well. How does that translate over to cost? Well, I Googled the average household electric bill for Gainesville, and it's $326 a month. My electric bill is $21.10 every month. I've heard the word subsidy thrown around a couple of times at these meetings, and to my knowledge, nobody's subsidizing me. I purchased my equipment. GRU credits me 1 kilowatt for every kilowatt that I send back. GRU buys back any excess for about half that price at the end of the year. The system works pretty seamlessly. After Hurricane Helene, my lights really didn't even flicker. The appliance clocks kept the same time, but the neighborhood was out for almost a day. I've been told that going solar is prohibitively expensive, but thanks in part to the clean energy tax credits, my system should pay for itself really in about 4.5 more years. I've had the system for 1.5 years, so that's better than my expectations were. But the calculation also includes the gasoline I don't use because I charge my EV from the house, and then I don't have to buy a generator either. So all this I get for $21.10 a month. For both a cost savings and a resiliency standpoint, I think solar energy makes sense in the Sunshine State. And speaking of resilience, I hope the board includes a solar energy component to its plan to utilize a recent Department of Energy grant that was awarded to GRU to strengthen grid resilience. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
But after that, I don't care to speak, period. I'll wait till I get to be mayor.
You're welcome to speak. Okay. No more public comments.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda will be CEO comments.
Thank you. I don't know if I can be as concise as the chair in my comments, but I did want to bring you up to date on a couple of things before we get to the business agenda. GRU started its budget kickoff, and in conjunction with, certainly discussions with the board, part of that kickoff was informing our staff that we wouldn't be looking for electric rate increases in 26 and 27. I want them to work within that moniker of being the utility the customer can afford, at least that as a starting point. I think we need to, look at that situation. I also wanted to, there were a couple things that folks had talked about here. The DOE grant, the $47 million that will get paid for some disadvantaged communities, upgrading our substations. We were able to move some of that money over into extending the line from the Parker substation to Duke. That will give us that redundancy. That's a big upgrade for the utility, gives us a lot of resiliency. It will also give us access to all kinds of power, probably allow us to get more access to more solar, which is part of the IRP going forward. I did want to address the one comment that was also about stopping the IRP. It was about putting the pencils down. It wasn't looking at the results of the IRP and discounting those results, because part of the IRP was the calculation of how to extend the useful life of the assets. And we're using that information. We're looking at alternatives to that. So that IRP was useful, and it's even more useful when you aren't changing it and you're using it for the results that it gave you. Let's see. Oh, there was a discussion about T, the Energy Authority, and it's true that GRU is a member. And we use it primarily as a trading platform. We use a lot of gas, natural gas. We have, residential customers that use it. We have our power plants that use it. So they are a very well-equipped trading platform for us. They also provide us with strategic planning options. They also sell some of our power when we have some excess power, and it helps us move in and around the grid. So they are valuable to us in that regard. I did want to point out that I think a gentleman said that the average electric bill in Gainesville for GRU was $320. Our total bill is $192 on average. And that includes electric, water, wastewater, natural gas, stormwater, and garbage collection. So that's not the case. So with that, just wanted to update some folks.
Any questions for Ed?
I do have just a comment too. I've toured around the facilities. As a comment was made that we're not planning for future downage or anything like that. We have 3 major power plants, and we have a bunch of redundancy in the system. And we are able to purchase power. I don't know where that came from, that we can't purchase power. So maybe the CEO can provide more clarity on it. But we've upgraded one of the turbines to a Rice engine, and one of them is producing more efficiently. One of the other units is down right now for an upgrade. We're able to say, extend the life of it. So it's just not accurate to say that we're not planning for future downages. And I'm confident in talking to everybody that we have enough redundancy in the system that we should be able to survive any major storm or anything like that. I'm extremely confident in that.
If I'd add, the rating agencies are extremely confident in that too, because every time we meet with the rating agencies, they love the diversity of fuel that we have. Yeah, we might not use all the coal generation. In fact, we're virtually off of coal, but it's there in case the market shifts. Now, we're looking at a Rice engine. We haven't converted one to a Rice engine at the present time, but we're building upon the work that Energy Supply has done to look for that as an option. But you're right, we've repowered the Kelly facility. When I was here before, we moved our coal operation so that we can also run DH2 on natural gas in addition to coal. So I'm very proud of the work the folks have done to build redundancy into the system so they can operate the grid as a valuable entity for the city.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is attorney comments.
Mr. Chair, unlike our CEO, I will be concise, and Merry Christmas. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Long-winded.
Moving on, our next item on the agenda are the business discussion items, beginning with 2024-922, the state of the utility, from the Department of the Chief Operations Officer.
Any questions when Mr. Brown is making his way up to the podium?
If I learned anything, to listen to you, because that's what happens when you don't.
And good evening, Chair Lawson, Directors, Tom Brown. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at GRU. It's the first opportunity I've had to address all of you since I've been coming back, so thank you very much for that opportunity. The state of the utility today basically shows numbers reflecting the first month of our new fiscal year, which is October, so it really doesn't have much comparison to last year's. But when I look at the report, it's a living document. We can add things or modify things to make it imply more information to you. It contains a lot of the information that I get as a COO or as generally from my departments on how we manage it. We just kind of make it a little more concise to put in this report. So I usually try and look at it from three perspectives. One is, since it is a month and a half in arrears, where were we at relative to where we thought we would be? And then what kind of threats are we experiencing in the last 30 days that aren't reflected in here that you may want to know about that might affect your cash flow and operations going forward? So that's kind of the way I look at it. The month was pretty typical. I think as I stand here, I think officially we're out of hurricane season. The troops out there did a wonderful job responding to the 3 hurricanes that we did have. Very proud of the work. And now the work continues, and that work includes trying to get FEMA reimbursement for our expenses. And that's an ongoing process. Sometimes it takes 4 to 5 years to get the money back, but we're getting very good at documenting the work that we do in the field and getting things prepared so that hopefully we can accelerate the money's coming back faster. So I think of note, I think it was mentioned, we do have Deer Haven Renewable turbine in outage. When we took it apart after 11 years of operation, they found some cracking in the first stage retention loop that holds the blades, keeps them from vibrating. It's an interesting phenomenon. We haven't got a failure analysis report back from Siemens yet as to what was actually causing it. I'm not sure that they made any design changes on the repairs going forward. So we may in fact see it again in another 11, 12 years when we take it apart a second time. That's just the way it is. I mean, you have to rely on the OEM to make those kind of recommendations. But the blades have been manufactured. They have gone through customs. They're on their way to Charlotte, and we expect to get the turbine back, rotor back about the first week in January and have it ready to be operational by the first week in February. So with that, I'll entertain any questions. If you had, I'm sure with the 485 pages of documentation that came with the consent agenda, you had an opportunity to go through all this, right?
Yes. Made a lot of notes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Well, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. The next item on the agenda is item 2024-924, Financial Management Information System Upgrade.
So while we're waiting for the PowerPoint to come up, Claudia Rasnick, CFO for GRU. GRU has been on SAP. It's a software system for the financial side and for the billing side, also treasury and budget for several years now. So initially, the billing system was installed in 2005-06. The financial system was installed in 08-09. And we've hit a cycle of essentially renewal of those software platforms. And so the item that is before you this evening I'm sorry, I think Mr. Warren might be working on the PowerPoint. The one that's before you this evening is essentially moving the financial system side of SAP to the newest platform. So if you go back and you look at the history of it, 0506 was the beginning, FMIS 0809. FMIS was re-implemented in 2017, and that's the financial side of the software system. And you've heard about the billing side being re-implemented in 2023. So currently, the platform that the financial side is on is going out of warranty at the end of December of 2025. So we're due for renewal. So what the plan is to take the current platform. When it was purchased back in 2017, it was put on the oldest platform available. This time it's putting it on the newest platform available. It's a 7-year contract. And another key change is it won't be on premise, it will be in the cloud, which makes it easier for upgrades and those sorts of things and to monitor and manage that system. And so the ask is a capital cost of $7.1 million, O&M of 17.3 over that 7-year period. And so now that I've given you the numbers, let me describe what happens with the software system itself. It accounts for our accounting. It accounts for our accounts payable, our procurement functions are all in there. Our treasury, which is our cash, investments, our debt, our budgeting, everything is linked inside of SAP so that everything talks together. So moving to that next platform is beneficial for a number of reasons, but we've also been asked by the general government side of the house to move off of Workday. So the pieces that are not in the SAP financial management system are payroll, human resources, which is like hiring people, and also benefits. So they've asked us to move those 3 components off of Workday by September or at the latest December of 2025. So the timing works well because we're already upgrading the platform and to add in the HR component. So the costing includes all of those particular pieces. And I think I've probably covered these couple of slides, so I'll just pause for a second, see if you have any questions.
On the O&M, is it about the same as you're paying now?
The O&M will increase because it is in the cloud. So we have increased hosting and license fees. It's included in the modeling. It's included in the budget that you approved last year for the capital and the O&M side of things. We do expect some reduction in costs in the IT realm, but I don't want to give you a number because we're still working through those particular pieces. We are able to achieve a discount by signing with SAP before the end of December of $1.1 million. So that's very sizable. If we don't move to this next platform and it goes out of warranty, the costs go up then because now you can't service the software. So once you're in a cycle, you're in a cycle as far as the financial system itself.
Claudia, if you wouldn't mind, I wanted to jump in for 1 second. It's not as though general government unilaterally said to us, hey, get off our system. We're looking to change our HR policies. We're looking to, work as a utility to, attract, retain employees. We're different. We operate differently than general government. So in discussions about that very topic, they said, yes, if that's what you want to do, it would be better if you did that yourself. Just like they're saying to us, hey, we want IT services that are different than what you employ at the utility. So they're looking to do something that is more representative of what they want as well. So this is not adversarial. This is simply doing what's best for each one of us as an organization. So I just, wanted to make sure that you folks understood that.
Yeah, it was a great discussion. They gave us a list of things that we should look out for as far as moving off of Workday. They've offered to have a transition team put together. And so it was a really good conversation. So I think Ed's mentioned in the past about putting an HR professional, a people officer in place that can help with those pieces. So we're starting to build what that actually looks like. So you have a people piece, a software piece, and then a process piece related to human resources and payroll. So.
Did you consider other vendors?
Well, with SAP, once you're kind of in their shop, you're in their shop. It's very expensive to switch. I think, well, it's not in the room, but I would say probably a minimum of $20 million. It's a minimum. And that's just for the software. That doesn't account for the training, you have to retrain folks how to use the system, you have to change your processes, because now the system, each system moves information in a different way, so your existing processes don't necessarily work with a new system. So now you're changing culture, people, processes, and software, and that's probably a multi-year project. That's a very large endeavor. The one that we completed back in 2017 was a very major project, because when the FMIS system, the financial system, was put in, that chart of accounts didn't match the billing system that was put back in 2005. So they didn't talk. So in 2017, you had to revamp the system, change the chart of accounts, change how everything linked together. But it gave us much more transparency. It's a pretty robust system that you can get a lot of information out of. So thank you for asking that question. I would say it's very expensive.
What's the projected life of this?
7 years.
7 years.
Yes.
Chair Lawson, I seriously looked at Claudia and said, have you considered Quicken? She didn't respond.
Thank you.
So the recommendation is to authorize the CEO to negotiate and execute agreements with SAP up to $7.1 million in capital, 17.3 million in license subscription for a 7-year basis, a total of 24.4. We are expecting that those O&M costs come in around 15 or 16 once we work through some of the IT components related to that. We'd like to execute by the end of December to take advantage of the 1.1 million in savings, and we can provide periodic updates to the authority as far as how the implementation is actually going. Thank you.
Just one question, Mr. Chair. Claudia, I think you covered it. I know we cooked into our modeling the increases. Did we also cook in the human resources and everything into that new modeling?
So the human resource component to it, while the HR department is being set up, you're going to have two functions running concurrently. So general government is still providing HR services while we're bringing on staff. So you will have essentially double those costs for a period of time. And then once we're able to roll off from general government services, there's that cost allocation plan component that would no longer be paid because they're not providing those services. But until then, they're still doing the work.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Claudia? You need a motion?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the acquisition of the FMIS package and HRIS package as stated.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Public comment.
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish. Jim Conish. I want Ed to correct me if I'm wrong. In 2009, you customized the SAP software. It's not cheap. Because of this customization, you couldn't utilize the regular fixes they come out with because all software has bugs, and they keep coming out with patches. It wasn't really clear what the intent of this customization was, but it basically accelerated the obsolescence of this extraordinarily complex and expensive software. Now, if I'm wrong, I invite Mr. Pilarski to correct me. My question is, do we have any other curious customizations of this software which will cause it to go obsolete by virtue of not being able to use the patches that follow any software of this nature? Thank you.
My public comment is that I have seen many mistakes done, in my view, and we can work those out in the year to come. My appointment about the HR is the HR department has been a downfall since they became the HR department. They haven't represented the people. They haven't done their job as an equal rights affiliation. So that there, I'm gonna cut the HR department out completely. There's not gonna be that in the city agendas. What needs to happen is the calendar year for January needs to be reviewed, and it needs to be appointed to the public. There's a lot of things that are being hidden from the public, and we need to bring that back. The gentleman mentioned about the solar. They won't give trailer park people like myself solar panels. Why? They have no comment. They just hung up on you. So where is the solar panel really doing the public any good? If you're not going to be for the public, as you taking state and selling these solar panels, then stop selling the solar panels, because you're not going to help the public, and the public's bills come from GRU. This trailer parks and apartment houses charging the same thing on their bill, and when you pay your rent, charging for the water, the trash, and for there was one other. There were 3 items that these trailer parks and apartment houses are charging us for when we are paying for the same thing in our GRU bill. Why is this allowed? My question. There's a lot of things that are going to be changed once I become the mayor of the city, and I'm going to try for December 17th. Ron DeSantis gets a letter to me, and we get the rest done to Harvey Ward, because he should have been arrested after he took and broke the Sunshine Law over 70 times that I know of. I don't have an accurate amount, so I'm going to state that. But the number of things that Harvey Wards have broken as a mayor should never be allowed to continue as a mayor. And our police department has done nothing to represent that, to take and stop him from doing the things he's doing. We have these officers sit in the city commission meetings, and what do? They do nothing. So that's all I have. So
Thank you.
Chuck Ross again. First, General Manager, thank you for going over what the Energy Authority is. Appreciate it. I had a couple of concerns about the adding the HR payroll and benefits to the GRU. In other words, transitioning the information that's over at general government, and would there be problems with the transition as far as the data, security issues with the data? You're going to have data over here, and then they're going to have to integrate it with what's over at general government for purposes of the retirement programs, those types of things. Further, since that's an addition, depending on what happens with the authority, we may not want to make that change. And I'm wondering, does it make sense to delay that portion? Because it sounds like you have to make the updates as the financial chief financial officer explained. So those are my concerns: integration, transition, and what happens if the authority is dissolved. We'd have to go back. Hopefully, we'll have an answer in a month or so. Or maybe more. Who knows? Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I did want to update one of the items. The question comes up about the patches and the releases and those types of things. And I think that's becoming a relic of the past. We're buying these enterprise-wide software systems as a SaaS system, software as a service. And so that obligation is part of SAP. So there's a forced updating of this information, from those organizations. That was always a problem in the past and you probably remember that, Chair Lawson. Where you would put a system in and then, you had to have these updates every so often. And, depending on where the budget was, you either got it or you didn't get it, and you ran past those periods of time. That's the beauty of software as a service. It's handled in the cloud. So they're responsible for those patches and those new releases. And I think that's a real benefit. It's kind of, it's a forced compliance, if you will, with keeping your system current. And, as to whether we customized in the past and those things, yeah, we probably did. In the past, thinking our system might need to be built a different way. This precludes that from happening. Yeah, we can configure these differently, but the reality is being a software as a service will kind of make us a standard system that can be upgraded. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Claudia.
No, I think that's good. But in the past, because you would customize, the upgrade would stop sort of at the customization. So, and I think the software vendors have gotten pretty smart about that, and moving into the cloud makes it much, much easier to do an upgrade. So where in the past, it might take you several people in the department working for several weeks, testing, et cetera, it's much quicker now. So there's some efficiencies as far as staff is concerned, so.
It's my understanding, one of the reasons why you're adding the HR component, not just because the city wants to push you off that platform, is that you need a platform that better reflects the utilities, the needs of a utility rather than city government. Is
yes,
that correct?
and the conversation with general government, the HR policies that are being proposed are going to be difficult for them to put into their software, and then they don't have the staff available to actually implement it. And so it makes sense to have two different platforms. So with SAP having everything integrated, we now don't have files moving back and forth, and everything's inside of the same system. So it creates different efficiencies. There are some things that we do that are routing outside the system, then they route in one system, and then they route in the other system. So now you're touching it 3 times when you can just run it through one system. And so the lift for HR, it's going to be a heavy lift. This is not going to be an easy process. But once you get it working, it's going to be working, and then you just upgrade as you move forward. Thank you.
Okay, any questions, any discussion?
I guess just to the gentleman's point, as we go forward, the judge is going to make a decision. And if it doesn't go a certain way, the HR policy, the HR component and all that can be left off the system, I'm assuming.
So
or are we committed this month?
We are committed this month for
Okay.
the HR system. But what has happened in the past with SAP in particular, if you don't use something, they can give you a credit and you can use it for something else.
Well, we're going to save $1 million by signing this
Right.
month, so that's, I'm
Right.
trying to weigh the balance. I think we're in better shape to sign now.
Right. Now, with SAP, once you get onto a system, it's very difficult to move off a system. So now you have a long-term relationship with a software vendor. Right?
What?
And so that's where those discussions, agreements, negotiations occur.
I know when we voted for the 17, same question you had. Did we check around? Just by chance, an acquaintance of mine was the competitor. He sold for him. And I called him, and he told me, he goes, the last thing you want to do is switch. He goes, I'd love to have your service. He goes, it would just be the nightmare. He goes, trust me. He goes, once we have you, we own you, is what he said. He goes, same with us. So he goes, it's just so expensive.
I can tell you, from working with the county, we had 2 different systems that didn't talk to each other, and it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
We wound up doing 2 different systems, and you don't want to go there.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor of the motion? Aye?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 2024-925, September 30th, 2024, pre-audit budget to actual comparison. The recommendation is that the GRUA receive the report.
Would you mind pulling the PowerPoint up onto the screen? Oh, perfect.
There you go.
Thank you.
While he's doing that, I'll say that this is a work in process, just like the state of the utility is. We want to try to be as transparent as possible, give you financial information that is, helpful for you, just like the operations is helpful in the state of the utility. So with that, Mark Benton.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to touch on a couple of these slides. If y'all have questions about the others, I'll be glad to address them. But this first one is just a summary. What it shows is what our actuals were from 23 and 24, and a comparison between the two, and then from 24 actual to 24 budget. So if you direct your attention to the first two columns, you can see that for the surplus and deficit after the GFT, which is the line in blue, there was approximately a $27 million improvement between 23 and 24, and it's basically made up of two issues. Number one, our revenues net of fuel were about $11 million higher in 24 than they were in 23, and that was driven by the fact that we had base rate increases, 3% in our electric system, 5% in our wastewater system. The other, and obviously the more substantial change, was the fact that we had about almost a $19 million reduction in the GFT, and that's what drove that difference. If you look at the 24 budget to actual, the $4.5 million change is made up of two components. Our budget actual in 24 they're actually pretty close on top of each other. On the revenue side, we were about $2.6 million over budget, and that is a little bit less than 0.75%, compared to the budget. On the expense side, we were about $1.2 million under, which is a little over 1.2%, so that makes up the $4.5 million difference. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go now to the last slide in this packet. Talk about our credit metrics.
Mark, do you mind if I say something about what you were talking about being over budget or under budget? One thing that always struck me about GRU's financial statements was the fuels. You think about that as part of a regular budget, and you go, oh, gee, fuels have went down. Therefore, there's a benefit to the organization, right? Your expenses have went down. We pass through all the fuels. So if our fuel cost goes down, so does our revenue. So it has zero impact to GRU and its financial statements. It's just kind of an anomaly of being a municipal utility. So when fuels go up, we charge for that same pass-through of cost. So you'll never see anything on our financial statements that changes the profit level based on fuels. It's a direct pass-through.
Yeah, and that's why whenever I talk about it, we couch it in terms of net of fuel, because you're right, it impacts both sides of the equation.
Apologies, I just want to clarify that with the fuel cost, there's an over-under at the end of the year that ends up in the fuel levelization. People think that it's cash set aside, but it's not. It's either a receivable or a liability, depending on where fuel costs end up. Thank you.
Okay, this is our financial metrics page, and when rating agencies develop a number of financial metrics, they use it to quantify, to work on the quantifiable portion of their credit analysis. Here at GRU, we try to emulate that. We use try to replicate the formulas that they use. We do that at quarter end in March, June, and September, and we do that for a couple of reasons. One is it helps us identify trends, potentially early on. It lets us know whether we're hitting our benchmarks, and it also prepares us for the discussions with the rating agencies. If they're going to have a question or they're going to have a concern, we'd like to know that ahead of time. So we do it at the end of the second, third, and fourth quarters. You can see up here, we develop a number of metrics. These 9 are the ones that are included in our debt management policy, and they compose the bulk of the really significant ones. We have liquidity, debt coverage, and leverage ratios. And you can see by the check marks up here, we made improvement. While we made improvement in most of these metrics between 23 and 24, if you look at the 24 on the top there, you can see with the red X's, we have a number where we haven't hit our targets. So we still have work to do.
Mark, one of the things I'd like to ask you, you to do going forward is each month when we meet and you give us an update, maybe pick one or two metrics and sort of dive in a little bit and, or in our individual meetings, educate us on what about these metrics. And then in this meeting, if we are in the red, maybe take a few minutes to explain, here's our plan to try to move to the green and what we're doing about it. So that's a lot of metrics, and we don't need to do every one every time, but over time, maybe we get us up to.
Yeah, and if you look at the top there, the 24 metrics, and you read the rating agency reports, these kind of tell the story. You're going to see the same story up here. Our liquidity metrics are relatively strong. Our coverage metrics are strong, but on the leverage side, on the debt, we have a good bit of work to do, and that's the theme that you'll see running through the rating agency analysis, and it's consistent. It supports what the agencies are looking at and what they're asking us to improve upon. But yeah, we'll be happy to do that.
But overall, when you go back to the financials for the year, pretty much ended on plan, if not slightly better than planned.
We were slightly better than planned in 24. Now, I'll caution you, I don't think these numbers will move. They're not likely to move, but our auditors are on site right now, so we haven't finalized these. They're pre-audits, but I can't imagine that they're going to move significantly from what you've seen today. So yes, that's a good way to summarize it. 24 was slightly better than what we had budgeted.
And it was also good to hear that expenses were well managed and came in under budget.
Yes,
I would add, looking at this as the CEO, one of the things that impresses me about BFA and what the organization's been able to do is this leverage number. We were at about 12, and the rating agencies want us to get down to 8. And I remember discussions, we'd say, oh my goodness, how do we get to 8? Well, we're already down to 9.24. And that's about, what, a 25% improvement, 20% improvement?
Yeah, but I always like to temper Ed's unbridled optimism. He's correct. We made significant steps forward because not only did we make our scheduled principal payments of somewhere around $40 million, but we defeased $35 million in debt as well, and that's what accounted for the bulk of that move. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this was also a year in which we did not issue any debt. There will be probably 2026, 2027, we'll be going back in the market, and so you're going to see that. Thanks, Ed. You're going to see that number, fluctuate a little bit. But he's right. For 24, that's absolutely correct. We've worked very hard with Fitch in particular over the last several years because they have drilled into us that their expectation is that we will reduce that leverage number to close to 8 within the next 3 to 5 years, and the stability of our rating with Fitch pretty much depends upon us getting close to that goal.
Mark is showing his value to the organization and just simply being able to temper me. But they really need to take some credit for being able to do this, because there were capital expenditure budgets that were able to be reduced. We've looked at deferring some of these items. So there's a lot of good management going on at the utility to make sure that even in spite of some of those upward pressures, that they're on a path in the right direction. And the rating agencies really appreciate that.
Any other questions?
No, I'm just appreciative that we're on the right path. We're doing good. Take some credit for it. You're doing good.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a resolution, Resolution 2024-919. I will read the full title, and then at the end, we will take a roll call vote. A resolution of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority, a unit of city government of the city of Gainesville, Florida, authorizing on behalf of the city of Gainesville, Florida, pursuant to the power and authority of the authority set forth in the city charter and resolution number 2023-1186 of the City Commission, and the resolution numbers 2023 through 1148 and 2024-557 of the authority. The amendment of resolution number 211098 adopted by the city on April 21st, 2022, authorizing the amendment of a credit agreement in connection with the cessation of the Bloomberg Short-Term Bank Yield Index and making certain other amendments, providing other details with respect thereto, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The recommendation is the GRUA adopt the proposed resolution.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we adopt Resolution 2024-919 as stated.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Public comment?
About this resolution of this here, Bill, from my records, according to the financial disclosures, are off. And therefore, my knowledge of being an educated CPA and a long-term associate of Gainesville. My godfather was James P. Wilmot, and so, you know, I'm not no dummy. I'm highly educated, and I'm going to show that in my election as mayor. But this here is something that needs to be reviewed closer because I see a lot of loopholes in here. I don't have a demonstration here to show you where I see those loopholes, but they definitely have been there. As far as the audit being done, no, the audit hasn't been done since 2019. This year I received in the agenda last week when I was at the city hall that this agenda stated that the audit for this city hasn't been done since 2019. And Tallahassee had told the mayor, the city manager, and the commissioners that they were all going to be removed. I don't see our police force doing their job removing them. One, two, I don't see where GRU has to take a second step to the city of Gainesville, in which it's been stated that they're no longer going to be affiliate of the city of Gainesville. This here is something that needs to be known, and I hope the public is able to watch this meeting. If not, it's a shame. It's just like spitting in their faces because you're not being an advocate for the citizens. Our jury bills show that. I'm going to be reducing those bills to 2009 when I become the mayor. I'll be doing a lot of cuts, at least 117 cuts that is going to be transferred. I'm going to withhold the other evidence in which I have at this time. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Back to the board for discussion. Any discussion?
I'd like to make a point of clarification. As GRU has audited financial statements completed every year, they're posted on our website, and we're currently under audit right now. So I'm not sure which side of the house or what entity he was actually speaking of.
Thanks, Claudia.
Thank you.
Director Craig Carter, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Jacobs?
Yes.
Director Skinner?
Yes.
Vice Chair Haslam?
Yes.
Chair Lawson?
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is 2024-920, gas prepaid transaction resolution. Again, I will read the full title into the record, and my goodness, it will be a roll call vote. My apologies for getting the mic. Resolution, Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority, a unit of city government of the City of Gainesville, Florida, approving the execution, delivery, and performance of one or more natural gas supply agreements with Municipal Gas Authority of Georgia and other documents respecting natural gas prepayment transactions with Main Street Natural Gas and for other purposes. The recommendation is that GRUA adopt the proposed resolution.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, we adopt 2024-920 as stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm curious. I've been very curious about GRU all my life. Since the price of natural gas fluctuates, when you prepay, are you basically like speculating on, are you locking in today's price? Like, how does this work? Like, you prepay based on today's price or based on the ever fluctuating price? Do you have a firm agreement to buy gas at a certain price and you're just prepaying it? Is there like another dimension to this? Because gas fluctuates. I'm just curious, is it what they say it is, or is there another wrinkle to it? Because quite frankly, there's massive misrepresentations all the time regarding what's going on here, because it's largely public relations. It's not really drilling down to prevent the collapse of this utility. We're in a lot of trouble. And I don't see anything transformational to deal with your massive debt and your aging arsenal of dirty, uneconomic plants. I'm sorry. I'm already off-grid in the country myself. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to share with the board that the prepay transaction is going to provide a discount of 52 cents per MMBTU, and it will save our customers $1.9 million. And so the way the discount works, it floats with an index, right? So if the natural gas, I'll just call it $3, we're paying $2.48. That's how that works. We talked about this particular item at the last meeting at length about the mechanics of how it works with Main Street, the suppliers. It's essentially a bond deal at the end of the day. So I can entertain any other questions that the board has. Okay.
No, you covered pretty well last time.
Thank you.
Any discussion? No. I just want to say congratulations on the great work. I mean, out of the gate, you already got these deals done, or at least teed up, and which was much faster than what you had originally projected. And so that's going to generate savings even faster. So, congratulations and thank you for your diligence on that.
Thank you. It was like 4 weeks flat.
Yeah, it's really fantastic.
It was amazing.
Again, this is a roll call vote. Director Carter, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Jacobs?
Yes.
Director Skinner?
Yes.
Vice Chair Haslam?
Yes.
Chair Lawson?
Yes.
Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is 2024-749, Appendix A, Utility Fees, Rates, and Charges for Fiscal Year. The full title reads, A Resolution of the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority, a unit of the city government of the City of Gainesville, Florida, pursuant to the power and authority of the authority set forth in the city charter, providing that Gainesville Regional Utilities shall no longer be subject to portions of Appendix A, Schedule of Fees, Rates, and Charges of the City of Gainesville Code of Ordinances that relate to electricity, water, sewage, natural gas, and general charges, modifying residential base rates for electricity, providing for the notification to the City Commission of the conflict with existing ordinances, providing a severability clause, providing a repealing clause, and providing an immediate effective date. The recommendation is that the GRUA adopt the proposed resolution.
Mr. Chair, I've been waiting. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution 2024-749 as stated.
I'll
Only wait so long.
We have a motion and a second. Public comment.
Since, Jim Conish, Mr. Chair, since you're not increasing our rates for 10 years, my first question would be, is this revenue neutral? I didn't see anything in the backups. There's going to be winners and losers. You have the second highest customer charge in the state of $17. You put pyramided utility taxes and grocery receipts taxes on top of it to the absolute maximum extent of the law. You bundle in with that electric meter, stormwater and garbage. So your effective customer charge is up about $50, $60. And this is cruel. And this is why there's all those disconnects that you don't want to even look at. This is why in the poor neighborhoods, every third or fourth house is dark. Not in your neighborhood where you and Cunningham live, but there's neighborhoods, they're dying. They're dying. I got a different proposal. If you don't go over 1,000, give them a lower rate. And if you do go over 1,000, charge them the tier 2 rate to offset the onerous impact of the bundled and high customer charge, the pyramided taxes, the stormwater and the garbage. Poor people with just an electric meter are taken off from $50, $60 a month and running into the highest rates in the state, and you're killing them. There's kids that go home, there's no refrigeration. There's no lights. There's no air conditioning. Well, of course they're out in the street. Their home is uninhabitable. And you guys pat yourself on the back how great of a job you're doing, but you go in front of the voters and you get slaughtered. That's because you delivered nothing to the ratepayers, except we didn't increase it again. Blarzy's not going to be here in 10 years. He'd be 77 years old. None of you are going to be here in 10 years. You're like, you want us to wish upon a star and think this honeymoon from rate increases is going to go on for 10 years. It's not. Because you are not looking at the fact that you don't have firm availability on the transmission line. You only can use the transmission line if Duke has available. You have no right to any amount of usage. And you're heading for a financial disaster. You're not looking at the SLA losses. And as I said, I've moved off the grid out in the country. I think other people are going to do the same thing. Thank you. Thanks.
Every time, it's crazy that you leave us.
Hi, my name's John Shepard. My comment is about the GRU bills, is that this is something that has been going up and up and up every year. What was the reason? I don't see a reason why the city commission or mayor needed to add these charges, bringing them up and up and up. As I mentioned before, when I get in office, I'm cutting it. I'm cutting it back to 2009 or further back. My CEO hasn't told me what he's got developed yet. So I would like to know, what are we doing as far as the homeless center? Who's paying the bill there? It sure isn't John Carmichael, because John Carmichael's taking his $256,000 and hit the road with it. This is something that is serious, what the gentleman before me mentioned, Jim Carnish. This is a serious situation, and I think we need to have the GRU people get in their vehicles and go out from home to home and see what the utility bills are in those homes and what the conditions of those homes are. If they're living in a tent, what is the condition? Nobody's brought that to the city commission of what these people are living like. I live in a trailer. I use as less utilities as possible. And put on extra blankets, the refrigerator, it don't work. And then the ideal replacing that. But there's a lot of hardship in Gainesville, and the city commission and members have not addressed it. If they want to be proud affiliates of our city, then they need to address them issues and address the issues of the land tax, the school tax, the property tax. These are big items. The business tax, these are big items. Where isn't grants issued to them? They give grants out like throwing dollar bills out the window, which I've done myself coming out of Canada because I don't like Canadian money. But this is something we need to look into for the upcoming year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I could just make a couple comments, and it's related to the service charge. And GRU's customers have really the luxury of having services through one bill. Electric, water, wastewater, natural gas, stormwater, and garbage, and telecommunications in some situation. Each one of those organizations has a fixed cost associated with running it. We have a gentleman here talking about his solar arrays. GRU's Electric's got to be ready to serve in the event they lose their power. Most of the folks that have solar arrays, they don't have the luxury of batteries during the night, so we're there to service them at night. So our grid is based on very high reliability. It has a lot of fixed costs associated with it. So as a result of that, we're probably the only utility in Florida that has the amount of services on one bill. Each one of those has a service charge, a fixed charge. That's not, us trying to be greedy. It's about us covering our fixed costs. I just want the public to understand that element. But we do have a little residential electric tier presentation here that I think it's important. When you start talking about customers' rates, you start talking about tiers, I think it's really important to understand the impact of those things. So I tasked BFA, the rates department, a month or so ago. I said, what other avenues do we have that we can reduce rates for the majority of customers? That was what I asked. We don't have a tier level that maximizes the ability to service our customers at a lower rate. So they came back with moving the tier up from $850 to $1,000. With that, you get 59% of your customers at a lower rate, a lower bill. There's a savings for 59% of the customers. Those customers are the ones using up to 1,450 kilowatt hours a month. The folks that don't get a change to the bill are the ones using up to 850. Now, that moves up and down during the course of the year, but that's another, I forget the number. That's another 24% of the customers. Only 17% of the customers will experience a higher bill under this proposal. I could not bring this back to the authority board to consider because it's exactly what I believe our mission to be, is to provide that, to optimize and minimize that cost to our customers. So that's why I'm bringing it back.
Mr. Polarski, also the 1,000 kW is the metric that everybody measures on typically in the industry.
Yeah, that tends to be the standard.
So it's going to be easier for us to benchmark.
That wasn't the intent. The
No, I
intent
know,
was
but
to
I'm
lower.
saying, so when
but
people
yes.
say our bills are out of this, they're having to gauge it against 1,000 kW versus our 850 is what we use as our benchmark, is that?
Yes, and the other thing I'd recommend is that they look at the full range of services that they're comparing it to.
You and I've had that discussion a couple million times, yes, sir.
The other thing is that I believe you told them we're competitive now with Clay Electric.
Yes.
We haven't quite caught FP&L, but Clay Electric we're competitive with.
Yeah, it's a burden I carry to explain to customers that if you just pull out the electric part of our bill and compare it to other electric providers, we are reasonable. We want to get it lower. We want to get to the middle of the road, but we're making inroads during the authority's existence. We've had the monthly bill for electric go from $152 down to $140. Now, most of that was reduced fuel expenses, but I have to say that when people say you haven't increased the rate, you haven't done anything, well, we've done a lot. The organization is subject to inflationary pressures that we're absorbing in the workforce, and we're continuing to try to be more efficient and absorb those over a period of time. That's a real something.
I think that's the main thing, and the period of time. The mess didn't happen overnight, and we can't fix it. It's not light switch on, light switch off. There is going to be some time involved, and for all the public comment that thinks that we don't all want like the absolute best for Gainesville and the best for this utility, that's obscene. I don't know what everybody else says, in the private meetings, but in the private meetings, I ask, are we doing the best job we can? Is there something we can do better? That's what I always want to know, and that's what we're working toward. It's a slow process to some degree, and unfortunately in this city, city government and the utilities seem to be like confounded to have the same exact responsibility, and they don't, unfortunately. So for some of the communities that are struggling, there should be some help there, but it's not necessarily something the utility can't even do, other than be as efficient as we can and as clean as we can.
Any other comments from the board?
I agree.
Thank you. This is going to be a roll call vote. Director Carter?
Yes.
Director Jacobs?
Yes.
Director Skinner?
Yes.
Vice Chair Haslam?
Yes.
Chair Lawson?
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is the director comments.
I wanted to share an item, Mr. Chair, if I may. We had the water crew out replacing our water meters out in our neighborhoods. Whenever I see crews coming into the neighborhood, I make a point to stop and ask. And the one guy says, "You look familiar." I didn't tell him who I was right away. But I asked him, I was like, "Hey, how do you think GRU is performing? I appreciate all the hard work you're doing." And they said, "Great." I was like, "What are your feelings about the board?" And then the guy says, "I know who you are." And so I explained I was a member of the authority. And this is a gentleman that has 30 years with GRU. And he said, "Keep fighting the good fight. Keep doing what you're doing. It's very commendable what you're doing," and had nothing but pleasant things to say about us. And it was concurred by the rest of the crew, which ranged down to a guy that's only had a year and a half of experience. So I wanted to let all of you know that when I see these crews, that is the positive feedback that I get about the job that we are doing. The public may not see it. They're not in our meetings. We can't discuss things with each other. We can't discuss things with the public when we see them. So we are very confined, but that they see the work that we're doing and they're supportive of that means a lot to me, and I'm sure it does all of you as well. So I wanted to share that story.
Thank you. Thank you. Greg?
My son's flying again.
Congratulations.
Good.
We're going to keep him in a bubble this time. Just
No more
update.
subsidy.
Yeah.
Jack?
No, I got my water meter replaced today too.
Before the cold weather hit.
Yeah.
David?
No, I mean, the guys, I've had some similar experiences talking to guys doing some work, like when the storm happened and all that. Most of them, they seem to from what I can tell, seem to like the board. They all do a good job. They're hard workers, you know. I recently met a young guy that we're contracting to do the AMI installs and stuff like that. He seemed happy with his job. He's excited to have as a young man, a job for a good company. You know, we joked about some stuff, but yeah.
Okay. So I'd like to finish by saying, first and foremost, I want to thank all the board members for your time and service and your serious approach to our community and to GRU. I want to thank Ed and his entire senior team for all the hard work that you've put in a short amount of time, and I'm excited about the outlook. Certainly, I want to thank Folds and Walker for all your support through some very challenging times, and most importantly, I want to thank all of our GRU employees for providing us just an incredible utility that we are all very proud of. So I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday, and we are adjourned. Thanks.